I had a good call with Donald Trump last night again. We obviously talked about laying out the facts, talking about how the intense and effective connections between our two countries flow back and forth. We talked about some of the challenges that we can work on together. It was a good call.
A few moments later.
Justin Trudeau made his way down to meet with President-elect Donald Trump. He also was at a dinner table, you can see there, with Howard Lutnick, the incoming Secretary of Commerce, and his wife. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, incoming lead of the Interior Department, and his wife, and Mike Waltz, Trump's choice to be National Security Advisor, along with his wife. You can also see there the Senator-elect from Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick. Trudeau brought some of his cabinet as well to have this dinner, where they wanted to discuss the proposed tariffs Donald Trump has talked about with Canada and Mexico.
Yeah. 25% on Canadian and Mexican goods, 10% on all Chinese goods, 41% of total trade to the U.S. is from Mexico, China, and Canada. We're looking at a total of $3.1 trillion of goods.
That are imported total.
That are imported totally. You know, this is a big deal because we don't export as much to them as they send
China
to us.
Specifically.
Yeah. And so this is a big deal. I mean, you know, Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump ideologically opposed, and yet you see Justin Trudeau. I'm going to read you this quote. You're going to see how conciliatory he is. He's not messing around. He understands he can't play games here. This will deeply affect Canada. And so this is a quote from him earlier on Friday. He says, ultimately, it's through lots of real constructive conversations with President Trump that I'm going to have that will keep us moving forward on the right track for all Canadians. It's important to understand that Donald Trump, when he makes statements like that, he plans on carrying them out. There is no question about it.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about President-elect Trump already making world leaders bend the knee, letting them know that America is back, okay? And we're playing hardball, and we're not letting you guys take advantage of us anymore, okay? That is something that Trump is already making clear to three countries in particular: China, first and foremost, Canada, and Mexico, okay? And he's doing that with threats of tariffs, which is something that the mainstream liberal media is boohoo whining and crying about. They're mad, they're upset, they're telling everybody that the price of everything is gonna go up. Right? This is what they're saying, okay? However, they don't understand, maybe they're just being willfully ignorant, okay? They don't understand Trump is a smart man, right? And everybody in business understands negotiations, okay? Everybody knows that in the ideal world, no, we don't want to tariff the hell out of Canada and Mexico. I don't know, maybe China, right? Maybe we actually do with China, considering how I really believe that we should form stronger partnerships with some of our allies in that area in order to wean off of China, because at this point, our dependence on China is becoming a national security threat. And clearly, China is not very friendly towards the United States of America. So I don't know. Yeah, we definitely should do something about China. But again, there's some people who get it and some people that don't, okay? The career politicians, the bureaucrats, the so-called journalists, the economists, they don't understand it, right? They are trying to pretend as if Trump actually really wants to put a tariff across the board on all these countries instead of what he's obviously trying to do, which is to bring countries to the negotiating table.
And it's not even clear what he's asking these countries to do. I mean, he says it's about fentanyl, but like no fentanyl comes over the border from Canada, you know? And even the fentanyl that does come over the border from Mexico is mostly brought over by American citizens. So it's not really clear what these countries could do to appease Trump. I really hope he is just saber rattling, because I agree, at least I think we agree, that a 25% tariff on all Canadian goods and all Mexican goods would be devastating, as would the likely retaliation, which would probably be much more surgically targeted to American businesses that would suffer, that are politically important.
Yeah, a couple of things.
Most of us who do business there realize it's time to really set the record straight here, because they cheat, they steal, they don't protect IP, we can't use their courts. And Xi is getting away with it because he thinks no one will stand up to it. My strategy here, and what I would advocate for, is to raise the walls so high that it forces him to the table here in Washington for a reciprocal deal, which we desperately need. it's not 25%, it's 400%. You basically threaten to bankrupt his economy. And the only reason she gets to be the supreme leader is people are employed. If you threaten the core of his economy by shutting down access to the world's largest economy,
people rise up.
They rise up, they throw him out. And when he senses that coming, he'll fly to Washington to cut a deal. It's going to take very tough negotiations, but I'm happy to see this is going on. Mexico and Canada, different deal. We have a new trade agreement. The challenge for Mexico has a brand new leader, so you see she's feisty, she's making her moves. That makes sense. Canada's a different situation. Trudeau's on his way out. He's at the end of a long mandate. In the parliamentary system, when you can't win a majority mandate, they throw you out. That's happening to him now. The new Prime Minister, most likely, is Pierre Poilievre.
We love him.
Well, he's going to be negotiating this deal. So I would advise Trump's team to bring him down to Mar-a-Lago and meet him now, because he's already told the Canadian people what he's going to do. Get rid of carbon taxes, lift the ban on pipelines, be pro-business. That's in sync with Trump's mandate. So I think there's going to be a great relationship in Canada, the U.S. over the next decade.
Yeah, I think that the U.S. and Canada are going to have a great relationship as well, too. And the way that you get a great relationship is to come to the negotiating table and to figure out exactly what we both want, what we both agree on, and what we're willing to do as a partnership in order to get what we want, right? And here's the thing. Justin Trudeau, before meeting with President Trump in person, he was getting humiliated in his own country, Canada, due to the fact that Trump had to issue these threats in the first place against his government and his lack of response to something that could devastate Canada.
President Trump had been saying that he would do this. He was elected 3 weeks ago. You'd think the Prime Minister would have been furiously planning and preparing, meeting with the premiers and talking about a counter plan during that time. And now we learn that since the threat happened, he's come up with exactly one response: a Zoom call. He's going to hold a Zoom call tomorrow. Of course, the media is absolutely captivated by this development. There's going to be a Zoom call between 11 or 12 politicians, and somehow this is going to solve the problem. We need a real plan, real action that will defend our economy and our security, and most of all, to put Canada first.
I spoke with Donald Trump yesterday evening, talked about how important it was for us to work together to solve some of the challenges we're facing as a continent, as countries, but also work to grow our economy, protect our workers on both sides of the border. This is the responsible, methodical approach we're taking as we move forward, while our opponent falls back on slogans and fear.
He spoke with the incoming president, and moments later, Mr. Trump put out a tweet slapping a 25% tariff on Canada. So that worked about as well as the Prime Minister's efforts on Buy America and softwood lumber, which continue to be penalized, even though the previous Conservative government got both of those things lifted. Now move over to drugs. The Prime Minister's disastrous legalization and liberalization of drugs has the Americans worried, in addition to costing 47,000 deaths in Canada. Where's the plan to stop the drugs and keep our border open to trade?
Once again, the leader of the opposition is just making stuff up. I clearly spoke with the President of the United States an hour and a half after he put out his suggestion on tariffs. The reality is we're going to continue to work constructively with the incoming administration to protect Canadian jobs, to protect Canadian growth, to take the responsible approach that isn't steeped in partisanship, that pulls together the Team Canada approach that stands up for Canadians instead of throwing our arms up and saying all is broken like the leader of the opposition.
Well, that's even worse. The statement went out promising tariffs before they even got a chance to speak. It's kind of like him backing down on Buy America and backing down on softwood lumber, Mr. Speaker.
While the anthropology major from Princeton turned liberal economist at CNN may not understand what Trump is asking for, Canada most certainly understands what Trump is asking for, because Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring, okay, to bend the knee to Trump after Trump made the threat of a 25% tariff across the board, okay, unless Canada helps the United States when it comes to the immigration problem, in which you have a ton of people immigrating to Canada and then they're coming across the U.S. border via Canada. Also, you have drugs, fentanyl flowing in through Canada from China. These are things that are happening. Also, there's some other trade agreement things that we need to work out in which we're not getting a fair deal from Canada. And yeah, the politicians in Canada are already responding. They're saying, yeah. Trump has basically forced us to evaluate these things that we already know is kind of unfair.
I know it's incredibly busy here in the legislature right now as you figure out how to handle these tariffs.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here and thanks for your interest, because 25% tariffs across the board with no exemptions, that's going to hurt every Canadian province. And so I think it's why you've seen that the premiers have taken such a vocal position on it so soon.
Well, what did you think when you heard this 25%? I mean, especially for oil and gas, I'd imagine that could be devastating to the Alberta economy.
Well, it's much higher than I expected him to lead with. I thought we were talking about a 10% tariff, which was going to be bad enough. I had hoped that we'd be able to make the case as well that energy should be exempted because, of course, the Americans benefit from having 4 million barrels a day, most of that coming from Alberta, able to feed their needs. It brings down the cost of gasoline and diesel, which the Americans have said that they want to do. But I think we've got to take the new administration at its word, that there are some pressure points that they want us to resolve before we can even get to those discussions. They clearly do not like to see either Canada or Mexico use as a backdoor for China to be able to have goods come into the American market tariff-free and hollow out their manufacturing sector. They clearly are irritated that we've not met our 2% NATO commitment. And most recently, they're irritated about the porous border for drugs, for people. And if we're going to have constructive conversations about trade, we've got to address those issues.
When you said initially responding to this that there was valid concerns, that was a different tone than, say, Doug Ford, who said it's like being stabbed in the back by a family member. I take it, valid concerns doesn't necessarily mean you think that the 25% tariff is justified, though.
No, well, look, I mean, we have been raising the concern about the unsustainable levels of newcomers coming to Canada for some time. We had started off because we'd had declining population saying, oh, great, let's have more people come to Alberta. But we have had 450,000 people come to Alberta in the last 3 years. And a lot of that is because the federal government has really taken off all of the restrictions on newcomers coming into Canada. It's stressing all of our services, and now we're seeing that some people are using Canada as a staging area to sneak into the United States. The Americans have identified that. That's a problem. It's a problem for Canadians, and it's a problem for Americans.
Yeah, so somebody send that to the anthropology major at CNN, pretending to be an economic expert, right? Because she said, well, I don't understand exactly what Trump is asking for from Canada and Mexico. Well, if you actually watch the news and you listen to the Canadian politicians, you understand clearly what he's asking for. He's asking for their cooperation when it comes to stopping China from smuggling their goods and their products into this country, trying to get around our tariffs, right, first and foremost. And then also on top of that, we're asking to stem illegal immigration from Canada into this country, which also contributes to the drug problem. Again, this is stuff that Trump has clearly outlined, okay? And it's just funny to me how people try to pretend as if Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Trump knows exactly what he's doing. That's why I am not concerned, right? I'm not concerned that there's going to be a 25% tariff across the board that's going to raise prices for everybody, because it's not going to get to that point. These people know that Trump is not playing, and if it does have to get to that point, it only gets to that point because Canada and Mexico, they don't want to play ball. And I guarantee you, for as much as these liberals want to talk about it hurting the U.S., it will hurt Canada and Mexico a lot more. And it hurting Canada and Mexico a lot more is the reason why it's not going to happen, because they know that if they lose access to the largest market in the world, their countries will go under, right? There will be revolts in their countries, right? And Trump knows that. Everybody knows that. And that's why this is just more fake outrage from ignorance, okay? I mean, again, fundamentally, people have to understand. Trump is a guy that likes to be popular, right? Trump likes to be liked. And that is the one thing that has actually saved Trump's political career, is that he has the people on his side. So Trump is not going to do something that is going to cause people to be hurt so badly that it would tank his approval and popularity, right? He's not going to do that, okay? People got to understand how this thing works. He's simply just negotiating. That's what he's doing. So Ted Cruz is going to school this CBS Face the Nation anchor on Trump's tariffs and what he's doing here, because again, it seems as if these individuals are clueless about how business works. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Now to Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who joins us this morning from Houston. Senator, it's good to see you. Good morning to you. Let's pick up this thread on tariffs. I remember covering your presidential campaign in 2016, and you were a skeptic of tariffs then. I know the politics around tariffs have changed. President-elect Trump has done that. But have the economics changed?
Well, I'll tell you what hasn't changed is the importance of leverage. And I got to say, you look at the threat of tariffs against Mexico and Canada immediately has produced action. We've seen the president of Mexico stand up and promise that she is going to work hand in hand with the president of the United States, President Trump, to secure the border. I'll tell you, representing Texas, we've seen 4 years of an invasion at our southern border. And let me ask you, Major, why hasn't Joe Biden done this? Why hasn't Joe Biden actually stood up and used leverage to secure the border? And the reason is Joe Biden and the Democrats wanted this invasion to happen. And I got to say, this is a promise that I believe President Trump is going to deliver on and deliver quickly. We are going to secure the border. This is about using leverage to get Mexico and Canada to cooperate. And I'll tell you, Major, I think one of the very first bills we're going to take up in the Senate, vote on, and I hope pass, is my legislation, the Justice for Jocelyn Act, that is a response to the horrific rape and murder of Jocelyn Nungaray, 12-year-old girl in Houston, Texas, killed by violent criminal illegal aliens released by Joe Biden and the Democrats. This is a promise the president needs to deliver on. I think he's going to.
So when you think about tariffs and President-elect Trump, you don't take them seriously as an economic matter. You take them seriously only as a diplomatic lever.
Well, look, I think the president was explicit with Mexico and Canada. He said he will impose these tariffs unless they secure the border. It was explicitly leverage. And by the way, that is the same way that President Trump negotiated the Remain in Mexico agreement. If you remember, during his first term, President Trump threatened tariffs against Mexico, and AMLO, then the president of Mexico, he was incredibly scared and concerned. He was scared of Trump, and he ended up signing the Remain in Mexico agreement, which produced the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. It was incredibly successful. What did Joe Biden and the Democrats do when they came in? The very first week in office, they ripped up that incredibly successful international agreement. I expect we will once again enter into Remain in Mexico, and we are going to see, I'm going to make a prediction right now, we will see the numbers plummet of illegal immigration coming into this country, not in a year, not in 6 months, but in January and February, because we will have a president who will vigorously enforce the law.
On that point, Senator Cruz, you would concede that in the last 3 or 4 months, numbers have gone down already, have they not?
They have ticked down slightly. We have still seen over these 4 years the highest rate of illegal immigration in our nation's history. 12 million illegal immigrants have come into this country. And I got to say, in a state like Texas, you want to see the consequences. This last election was an incredible landslide for President Trump. He won all 7 of the swing states. And in Texas, President Trump won Hispanic voters in Texas. I won Hispanic voters in Texas. I won statewide by 1 million votes, 9 points. And South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, has literally spent over 100 years as a bright blue Democrat bastion. This cycle, South Texas flipped Republican, and it is amazing what having 12 million people invade your home can do to change people's voting behavior. I think the president has a mandate to deliver on securing the border, and I look forward to working hand in hand with him to deliver on that promise.
Yeah, so here's the thing. This CBS anchor brought up the point that, well, hasn't illegal immigration dropped already, right? Now, yes, illegal immigration, particularly leading up to the election, has dropped, but that's because Biden negotiated an agreement with the last president of Mexico in order to try to save his ass, right? In which he said, listen, just hold the illegals for right now, right? Please just actually do some enforcement at your southern border, okay? And hold the illegals and keep them from coming to the United States at least until after the election, okay? Because I'm trying to win. So it's not that they're not coming. It's not that they're not trying to get in. I mean, every illegal knows all you got to do is just go to the border and say, yo tengo hambre or yo tengo sed, right? And they're going to let you right in. Okay, just say you're seeking asylum. That's it, right? And they're going to let you right in. It's not that they have stopped coming. It's that Mexico is holding them and preventing them from getting to the border. in order to save Biden, right? That is what they were doing. Now with the new president, okay, who is a leftist, right? Trump is already sending a preemptive, key word here, warning shot to her saying, listen, you better continue to do that. You better keep the illegal immigrants from coming to the border, right? Keep them from coming to the border. Do exactly what you guys were doing before, or else there will be consequences. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Again, a lot of people don't understand the game that's being played here, but if you actually paying attention and you understand how business works, how negotiations work, you don't wait until the person you're trying to negotiate with does something that you don't like. No, you already tell them, listen, if you do something I don't like, there will be consequences so that you prevent them from doing that. And see, the Mexico president had to come out here verbally and to double and triple down on, okay, yeah, we're already doing that and we're going to keep doing that, right? So again, that was the whole point. So again, Trump is already making these people bend the knee. And again, the Mexico president, she's trying to act all big and bad and tough and she's doing her thing, but she's weak, right? She's weak. She knows that she's not in a position to really try to negotiate with Trump from a position of strength, okay? She knows that. So again, with that being said, you got to understand the chances of these tariffs actually being put into place across the board, which is what the liberal media is fear-mongering about, is slim. Okay, because Canada, Mexico, they're going to fold. You already see, again, Justin Trudeau flying down to Mar-a-Lago, quick, fast, in a hurry, right? They're already expressing concern because, again, they know they don't have leverage, right? They don't have leverage over Trump. They know that, okay? So, yeah, I mean, a lot of this is just politics, okay? And a lot of people are just ignorant about what's actually happening. They just assume the worst, right? They just assume the worst. Every time Trump opens his mouth, they just pretend like the worst is going to happen when, again, they're not really paying attention. But if they were paying attention, they were being honest, they would have to acknowledge how much of a good businessman Trump is and what he's doing, how he is basically forcing our allies, right, to actually pull their weight, okay, when it comes to this partnership. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.